Greetings, folks. Scott Galbraith here, also known as the Great Scott, and welcome to something that we did about 2 weeks ago that was just so much fun that I decided we had to do it again. I got together some of my Christian actor Facebook friends and guys I've worked with before to do a little actors roundtable, and I got a lot of great feedback on it. So I decided that it was only fair that we do it again so that we could talk some more shop about the world of acting and God in our lives. Unfortunately, sometimes when you make a sequel, not everybody is available for the second time around, and sadly, Michael Joyner, who participated in the first one, has actually been getting busy with some stuff, which we thank the good Lord for. But two of my previous guests were able to come back. Let me introduce them to you real quick. The gentleman who has worked with both the Cristiano brothers and was in Avatar and is a massively good voiceover actor. Please say hello to Mr. Michael Blaine-Rosgay. How are you doing, Michael? Welcome back.
Good. I'm doing well. Thanks for having us again.
No, it's great to see you again. Next up, we have the gentleman who was in The Reconciler with me. He's also done a whole bunch of commercials. And one thing that I forgot to mention last time, he was in the movie The Book of Ruth. He played, what was it, Obed, Bob?
That's correct.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, of course, you'll always be known as the physician who pronounced Lincoln dead at the end of the Steven Spielberg movie Lincoln. Say hello to Robert Shephard, but we call him Bob. How you doing, Bob?
Yeah, good.
Okay.
Thanks for asking me back.
No problem. And we have a fourth guest here today. This is a gentleman who I have done 2 movies with, but have never shared any screen time with for some reason. So this might actually be the very first time that we are on screen together. His credits include the show Flashpoint, the show Suits. He was in The Reconciler. He was also in A Murder of Innocence. Please say hello to Mr. Frank Chesurin. Did I say your name right, sir?
Nailed it.
I nailed it. Good.
Good work. Good work.
All right. Well, anyway, it's great to have you all here today. And one of the things that I just wanted to say right off the bat is, Michael, you kind of inadvertently crashed a Reconciler reunion here, if you will. You were the only person on today's little roundtable that was not involved in the Reconciler.
Shoot.
But,
Party crasher.
Yeah, that's okay. But just to give people out there watching an idea, that people automatically assume that if you worked on the same project that you knew each other. And we have an example of that's not always true here today because Bob and Frank were both in The Reconciler. In fact, Bob, you actually played Frank's commanding officer who was obsessed with finding the Reconciler after him and his partner became a victim. But the truth is, before today, you guys have never met each other. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yep.
That's right. If I remember the scheduling correctly, Frank came in one day and you shot both of your scenes in the car. And then you left, and then the very next day, Bob, that's when you came in and shot all 3 of your scenes. So sometimes you'll work just one day on a thing. I mean, like I mentioned this once before, Bob. You've never even met Lindsay, who played Stacy, Frank's partner in the movie, and you actually have a scene where you're talking on the phone with her. But that's all done through editing.
Who I was talking with.
That's one of the interesting things. Meanwhile, another thing that I mentioned the Book of Ruth just a few moments ago. You were in the Book of Ruth, which Sherry Morris was in, and Sherry Morris was again in Reconciler. And just like Frank and I did 2 films where we never shared any screen time, you've done 2 movies with Sherry Morris where you guys never shared any screen time.
That's true, but we did have dinner together that night at the end of shooting.
Yes.
With Sean. So at least, we bonded a bit,
That's good. That's good. Actually, since Michael, if you'll just permit me here, because I have 2 of the cast members here, there was something that I wanted to read while I had them both. Have you guys all heard me either on Facebook or other platforms really endorse this Amazon show called Vindication? Or have any of you seen it yet?
Not seen it, but you endorsed it.
Yes. It's a faith-based cop show, and as far as I know, it's one of the very first faith-based cop shows for Amazon to ever carry. And it's been getting a great response, and because they shoot in Texas, they might actually be resuming production this month, which is great to say the least. But when Sean Justice and I had a few ideas about turning one of our long-standing ideas into a series, we wanted to know some of the tricks of the trade from the guy behind Vindication, which turned out to be a gentleman by the name of Jared O'Flaherty. And I actually had Todd from the show on as one of my virtual volunteers at one point. And I had completely forgotten that I had sent him a copy of the film as a way of saying, yeah, so I sent Jared a copy, but I haven't gotten you a copy yet, Michael. Sorry about that. I'll get you one. I'll get you one eventually. But anyway, at about 10 o'clock in the morning, not 10 o'clock, about 6 o'clock in the morning my time, I get a Facebook message ding off, and it's Jared sending a message to me and Sean Justice. I'd completely forgotten that I had sent him a copy of The Reconciler. and I just thought Bob and Frank would like to hear this. This is what Jared O'Flaherty, the creator of Vindication, had to say about The Reconciler. Hey guys, just finished watching The Reconciler. Lots I could say, but in summary, I enjoyed it. I'd watch it again. I'd ask my family to watch it, and I think you did a commendable job. Man, I really liked the conflict between the twin brothers and how it was gray. I never could decide who was in the right and wrong. The acting of the detectives in the car was Hollywood grade. Closing credits song was wonderful. Tell me where to buy it, and I'll buy it tomorrow. Congratulations on a solid film. So,
Wow, that's nice.
Nice. Very
That's
nice.
really nice. Yeah. You know, actually, Vindication, unfortunately, I don't get it up here in Canada on our Amazon Prime. I tried looking for it, but we don't get it.
there is a Christian platform that carries it. I'll look into that so that you can take a look at it that way. I think you can find that online. That's actually one thing I forgot to mention. Because Frank's here, this roundtable is now going international. He's coming to us from, was it Toronto, Canada?
Toronto, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, Toronto, yes. Michael, where are you?
North of you.
Yeah. Where are you right now, Michael? Because I know you're on a different time zone than the rest of us.
Pacific time zone, beautiful Hood Canal, Washington. It's in Mason County, so it's pretty gorgeous. I'm sitting right on the water. So if I stare out, it's not that I'm not interested. It's that, oh, there's a seal. Look.
Okay. I, of course, am in the Boston area.
World.
Just to let you know, we're still standing here, despite everything that's been going on. And, of course, Bob, you're in Virginia, correct?
Correct.
Yes. Now, one of the things that we did the last time when we started the discussion was I went around and I asked people, to give me their backgrounds. Now, in the interest of saving time, Michael and Bob, I already put you through that the last time we were here. So if anybody's watching this and wants to know of Robert Shephard or Michael Blaine-Rosgay's background in the world of acting, you can just watch our first roundtable. Frank, that leaves you. I would like you to maybe tell us, how did you get involved in the industry, and when did you decide you wanted to be an actor?
In 5 words or less?
No, if you watch you know what, you fit right in here because everybody during the first round table said that it was a long story as well. So today we got one long story as opposed to 3. So please.
I'll try and keep it short. I went to theater school. I always did plays growing up, and theater just seemed like the step for me. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of teachers that pushed me in that direction as well. And it was a passion for me. I really, really just felt that that's where I needed to go. And unfortunately, as a theater actor, especially in Canada, I don't know what it's like in the States. I guess it depends where you are. But financially, unless you're doing, large musical productions and stuff like that, right, you'd be working basically paycheck to paycheck. So the evolution was to go into film and television. And since I am fluently bilingual in both English and French, I work in both languages in film and in television, and as well in theater whenever I can. I've been working in the industry for 20 years now, I believe. Mm-hmm. And like anyone else, I've had my ups and downs. The peaks and valleys are there. And but I've been blessed with work in the past. And, unfortunately, things happen and in the world generally. And it's just like now, for example, our industries are at a halt, which is unfortunate. But there's bigger things here than our industry, and we have to focus on that. But ultimately, I've always loved working as an actor, and I write as well, and I'd love to, take my hand at directing as well. That would be nice. I was going to say at acting. Yeah, it'd be nice to try acting sometime. Maybe actually really try. But in terms of my career, I wasn't a Christian when I started. I gave, my life to Christ several years ago and gave my career over to him as well. And things have been different since, my choices are a little bit different. And my wife's an actor as well. And we pray about each audition, each job, and we see where God leads us. If we have a piece about doing, do it. And if we don't, we don't. And God usually shows up and he shows us why we're there. And, sometimes we have to be a light in a dark place. And sometimes it's working on faith-based productions. And unfortunately in Canada, there isn't that much in that regard. Obviously, I'd like to change that. And there are a few people that are in the same boat and same vein as I am that would like to do that. And hopefully we'll be able to do that and do more faith-based productions, at least, well, productions more about hope, and things that are really geared toward people and keeping families together. I've been on children's shows where I played a dad. I did that for 4 years on a kids show that just finished, that just wrapped last year, and that was a huge blessing. And those are good, wholesome projects. And but I'll work on whatever God leads me to go work on. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and one of the very first things that God led you and your wife to work on together was, of course, the movie A Murder of Innocence. And you might actually find this kind of interesting, because I was in A Murder of Innocence. One of the interesting things I find about A Murder of Innocence and Reconcile is that they were directed by the same guy, Sean Justice. And Frank, you and I kind of have the reversal of what the other actor has in both those movies. I was one of the leads in Reconciler, and you had a part that was in 2 scenes. And then you were one of the leads in A Murder of Innocence, and I was like in three scenes in that movie. So it's actually one of the reasons why I don't think we had any scenes together. But your real life wife, Rachel, plays your wife in that movie. One of the reasons why I found out later on that happened was because Amy Anderson, who the movie is about, said that Sean wasn't putting enough public displays of affection between Amy and Albert in the script. And in the faith-based community, when the actors are not actually married, there's a lot of ultra-conservative people who just get very upset at that kind of stuff. And Amy's solution was find a real couple, and that's what led to you and Rachel doing one of the things that led to you and Rachel doing the roles. Little while later, I was telling somebody that story, and someone said to me, well, I guess if they were married in real life, they didn't have to do much acting. And my response was, well, I wouldn't go that far. Albert and Amy had 6 kids in real life, and Frank and Rachel don't have any children. So they definitely had to do some. That's one regard that art did not imitate life. But anyway, one of the things that you said, Frank, actually, I want to start the going around what I call the round table. I know it's really not a round table, but I didn't know what else to call this. One of the things. Square, yeah, square table. One of the things I did last time was I wrote a whole bunch of questions down. I jokingly say I took a cue from Whose Line Is It Anyways, Scenes from a Hat, although I'm not having you guys do scenes here. And I wrote down like 10 questions, but we ran out of time and we actually only did 4 of them. So I left the other 6 in here. But before we do that, Michael, one of the best feedbacks I got from the very first roundtable that I did was from your director from Unidentified, Mr. Rich Cristiano. He thought that the first roundtable that we did was very nice. And Rich is a great guy. He gave me one little opinion, though. He said, there's a question you should have asked. So under Rich's advice, when a guy like that gives you advice, you have a tendency to listen. The first question is going to be a question courtesy of Rich Cristiano. Okay? So this is the question that Rich said I should have asked, and we'll go around one at a time, and you can each give me your answer. Rich said I should have asked, what advice would you give to a Christian who wants to be an actor or a person who wants to be a Christian actor? Michael, why don't you go first, because it's your former director who gave us this one.
Boy, I couldn't possibly answer that, Scott. I'm joking. I think that Frank's testimony really covered all the bases on that. How he came into it. Let God lead would be my first and first admonition. Let God lead into the projects you're going to do, into the teachers that you select. Our profession is by and large, as Frank said, not faith-based, but there is truth in storytelling, and that comes from God first. So start with God, and then develop your network. As with any business, you've got to start developing a network and reach out. Just make sure that your network is populated as much as possible with faith-based people, right? There are Christian acting teachers out there. There are Christian agents out there. So, as you proceed down that path, just make sure that the underpinning is God, because our business can lead you astray, right? And we can see that on TV and so that would be my advice, and do the work and no acting, please. There you go.
Bob, you got anything to add to that?
I think the key thing is, first of all, just make sure that you're comfortable and you know that that's what God wants you to do and you're in for the right reason. because be prepared, regardless whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, there is great rejection, there is great, all kinds of things that you are going to be confronted with, and it can be very easy to be discouraged. So if you have that you know that that's your calling and that's what God wants you to do, then I think you can feel free to go forward. And also, just try to enjoy the process. Don't worry about, oh, I'm going to be a star, or I want to do this, or when I get to that. Because if that's your goal, you may go through half a career and feel like you've never achieved it. So everything that comes forward, do the best you can, giving God the glory for it, and having that comfort that you know that you are there because that's what God has called you to do.
Amen.
I know that place about getting caught up about wanting to be famous. That's kind of where I was before we made Reconciler, to be honest with you. I look back saying, what was I thinking? Frank, you kind of already touched upon this, but do you have anything to add?
I mean, I agree, obviously, with what Michael has said. Ultimately, I think, you know, with any actor, you need training. That's, you know, and yes, I mean, if God is at the forefront of what you're doing, ultimately he's going to protect you from things that you shouldn't go into, and you need to trust that. And yes, rejection is there, and like any job, I don't know how anyone does that without God in their life. I remember a TV show that I saw where there was two detectives sitting in a car, and one of them was a Christian and one was not, and the detective said, I don't know how you do this job without Christ in your life, because it's hard enough with him. Yeah. So I mean, ultimately, it's just, you know, having God at the forefront is definitely has been a help for me and continues to be. And I know that he's going to protect me and guide me in the areas that I need to go.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that Bob said was, you know, getting caught up in wanting to be a star and not wanting to, I mean, to be honest with you, I'm in awe of the fact anytime that I see Reconciler or Murder of Innocence, I'm just like, yeah, I get to be in a movie. But a couple years ago, there were some times I got caught up on about how successful or not successful they were. And I think that one of the reasons why so many people come out of show business not better than when they went in is because, you know, there's that old expression that you want to do, whether it's show business or anything else, you want to do a job for the longest time, and then you get there and realize it's not everything you thought it was, or it's not everything it was cracked up to be. In the case of show business or being a Hollywood star, it goes one step further than that. You kind of end up with the realization that the life you were dreaming about really doesn't exist for anybody. You know what I mean? The way that the entertainment world portrays it as all glitz and glamour and all fun and stuff is all just the illusion that the news has created. And if you get close to anybody who's at that level and you really research them, you're like, okay, this really doesn't sound like what I thought it was. And you're like, okay, I'm dreaming about a life that doesn't even exist. You know what I mean?
Well, a lot of times it's empty. I mean, look at, you know, I don't know if you guys saw The Last Dance with the Bulls story with Michael Jordan. Right. You know, when he won that trophy, yeah, it was great, but it was still empty. So, right. I mean, it's, you know, a lot of times that's, unfortunately, that's it is.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of stars, yeah. Speaking of, go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, yeah, you hear that with a lot of Academy Award winners. You know, they come home with the trophy, actor, best actress, and it's like they crash. It's like, now what? You know, that's been my focus. I think it's how we measure success, right? Yeah. So we put out a story that we think is quality and we think is it's worthwhile. It's a story that needs to be told. Doesn't matter box office. It really can't. It's going to touch people. Did we do the best job that we could with it, ourselves and the story? And is it a message worth telling? I think that's the measure of success, right?
I think it's also really important to surround yourself with good people. Keep those relationships with your family strong. Right. Because regardless of how big a star you may or may not be, if you live long enough, the day's going to come that a lot of that may be very well dimmed and fade. And if you don't have the church, if you don't have the church family, and even your own family, I think that also contributes to a hollow feeling of success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was kind of in a mindset of, you know, hey, if I could just get a Christian film made, I would, you know, have it made, or that would make my life feel like some meaning. And then after we wrapped on Reconciler, I was like, okay, not much is different here, really. I spent, more than half my life chasing this, and that which is one of the reasons why I was more than happy when Sean and I couldn't get any of our other projects off the ground. The minute he was hired to do A Murder of Innocence and he offered me a role, I was like, I'm there. I don't care. You know what? I just want to work again. And actually, talking about admiring a star or whatever, really quickly here. One of the funny things, Frank, I'm going to tell them a little funny reconciler set story here, just real quickly. We all have TV shows that we really like. This is a story Frank's heard before. And one Canadian show that premiered here in the States during the writer's strike was a show called Flashpoint. I don't know if you guys had ever seen it, but it's about the Metropolitan Strategic Response Unit. And we all have favorite episodes of shows that we watch. And one episode that I really liked of Flashpoint was an episode called Blue on Blue, where a member of the police team gets kidnapped by two computer-heavy hackers, and they threaten him to break into the evidence depot. Guess who played one of those two computer-heavy hackers in that episode?
Ooh.
Frank.
Ooh.
Frank. So I find out that one of the guys who was in an episode of Flashpoint that I had literally watched over a dozen times is going to be in the movie. And I spent probably Frank's entire day of shooting walking up to him and quoting lines from the episode just to see how he would react. And he kind of, I'd never met the guy before, and I really kind of was fanboying you. So I really appreciate you putting up with that. It was very nice of you.
You knew my lines better than I did, I'll tell you. But Scott, I just need to correct you on something first, though, man, before we go forward. You said that after the reconciler was done, nothing had changed. Now, nothing had changed necessarily in your life and where you were going, but you don't know how many people that film touched.
Right.
So
right.
Things have changed. It's just a matter of how God's using it. And again, it's like what Michael said, how do we measure success, right?
Mm-hmm.
One life saved is success to me.
Yeah. I mean, just to count the small blessings, a guy me prior to having my first movie credit could never have pulled off something like what we're doing here today. I mean, I met two of you because that movie was made, and I forget how I originally connected with Michael, but that's okay. Anyway, I feel like I'm doing a lot more talking during this round table than I did the first one. I apologize. Anyway, let's get to some of the questions here. At this point, I have no control over what's coming here. And Bob and Michael, I didn't put in any of the questions we did during the first round table. And Frank, you wouldn't have been able to cheat by watching the first one. So let's see what the first question is that I pulled out randomly here. And we'll just go around, okay? Oh, this is a good one. Okay. What was your first on-screen acting job? Michael Blaine.
Boy, an industrial film for Bosch Auto Parts.
Really? So it was a commercial?
Yeah. Yeah, in Seattle, and it was a training film. So in Seattle and Oregon, where I kind of cut my chops before I came down, I made my way down the coast. That's primarily is industrial films, training films for sales forces. So Boeing's big there. I did some for them, and Intel, Hewlett Packard are big up there. I don't know how I dropped into the Bosch thing, but I remember that. And we shot a lot of it in Tacoma, back when the aroma of Tacoma was still flowing. Anybody local to the north would know that.
All right. Mr. Shephard.
Auto Parts.
Cool.
Well, I guess it's not really a job, but I actually made my national TV debut in 19 as Bachelor #2 on The Dating Game.
Oh, really?
So that was kind of the first credit. And then, of course, you're supposed to say, did you win the date? And then I can say, yes, I did. So it was quite a little event, but then it was a long time. So technically, though, my first acting job that I got a paycheck for, small as it was I was an extra in Nashville, the film that
Robert Altman.
With,
right.
Let's see, with
Robert Altman.
Robert Altman, yes, for sure. Yeah. So that was the first paycheck.
All right. Mr. Chesurin.
My first ever on screen was playing it was a French TV series called Un gars, une fille, translation, a guy and a girl. And I played Superman at a Halloween party, and I had 2 scenes in it with the main character. And it's funny because I've auditioned to play Superman 2 other times since, but clearly I didn't get it. But yeah, that was my first gig.
Yes. Well, you know, what's funny is you wore glasses for Murder of Innocence, and I thought you had a Clark Kent look about you, to be honest with you there. You know, just like the first round table, we are having so much fun. Time has slipped away. I just want to let you guys know we're at the 10-minute warning right now. But thankfully, 10 minutes is enough time to do at least one or two more of these. So let's
Are
see
we
what else
supposed to say thank you, 10?
What?
Are we supposed to say thank you, 10? Isn't that what they say in the theater?
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Okay.
Okay, here's a good one. This one kind of falls under acting techniques. Do you have a personal secret? What is your secret to memorizing lines for a role? Michael.
Intention. I used to really worry about it and go by it by rote. I try to find the intention behind, for me at least, why am I saying what I'm saying? And then it seems to fall into place. And then I'll take it to make it my own. I'll take my lines, put them all together without it, and just write them out. And then I start to find how it's touching me. It's in the process of typing and watching what I'm typing. And then I go, oh, okay. Well, how is this impacting me? Where's this coming from in me? Where's it landing? And then I just drop into that. And there we go.
All right. Bob?
I pretty well just go line by line and work on it and get it memorized and keep going back until I always take a piece of paper though, and I cover the line before it and then I use their line and I cover my line just as a way of practicing, because I think it's so important that you know what the person before you has said, and that helps you figure out, you know, where you're going with your line. So it's old-fashioned and probably primitive, but line by line with a piece of paper to keep covering my lines after I've memorized them to make them my own.
Thank you, Bob. Frank?
For me, it's a lot like Michael in terms of intention is really important. And you can always sort of tell when something is good writing versus not so good writing. It sinks in a lot faster, I find, when it's good writing. Maybe that's just me, and maybe that's just, I don't know, I guess that's subjective as to what you think is good or bad.
Right.
But it helps me, definitely. I know when it's good writing because it really just sinks in. But yeah, intention is really important.
I think it really is kind of difficult, though, when the writer phrases sentences that are opposite of the speak personally. And you know they want them there, but I would never quite say it like that, you know. And so then to make it seem natural, it's a bit of a job sometimes.
Yeah. For me personally, one thing I used to memorize audibly a lot, because two of the main plays that my church did over and over again would send you discs that had the whole thing memorized. In fact, it became a joke that if someone said a line wrong, ask Scott, because Scott has the whole play memorized, because I would drive around listening in my car. And sometimes what I will do is, and this actually drove Sean crazy a lot on Reconciler. I think if I wasn't the co-writer of the film, he might have fired me for it. But one of the things that I have done in the past is I have done what I have dubbed gist memorizing, meaning that I have a tendency to get the gist of what the line was, but if you run into somebody who wants it word for word and you're working with me, I might get in trouble. Like, for example, so I was working on one movie once, and I did this great scene. I got it just down. I think he said something like, "You left out the word is." It was supposed to say you said it a different way. And I was like, it was pretty much exactly the same thing, but this guy wanted it word for word. So that was actually a movie I was, yeah. Go ahead, Frank.
I think it depends. Obviously, I think it depends on the writer, but I think that anything that's grounded in truth, as long as it comes out properly, and again, the intention of the scene is there, I think a lot of writers and directors will let it slide.
Yeah.
As long as it's grounded in truth.
I've always looked at more of any script that I've written and worked with a group of actors. I've always said, think of the script as a blueprint. If you have a better way to say the line, it doesn't have to be exactly the way I wrote it. In fact, Reconciler was based on a play, and Sean said, "Can I see the original script?" And I'm like, well, I'm not exactly sure where that is, because I did write an original script, but when we did the Reconciler as a play, we changed so much in between when we started and when So I was like, I'm not sure if the original script I have does it much justice. Okay, we're down to 5 minutes here, so I'm going to pull out one more of these and see what we can do with that. All right. Do you have any funny on-set stories?
No, everything on set for me has been a tragedy, Scott. It's just, yeah.
Okay.
So when I was filming Avatar, we're on set, and it's you'll see this in the editors, the director's edit. It's when we meet with the hero and take him into the crematorium where his twin brother, there's twins again, that may not have come out in Avatar, but his twin brother, who was designed for the Avatar, is laying dead, and they cremate him, and he goes up in flames. And we're trying to pitch him to take over his brother's position over his brother's dead body, so to speak. And so it's all a set, right? And the darn thing catches on fire. The crematorium thing catches on fire, and James Cameron goes, he's the first guy in there with a fire extinguisher. He's putting the whole thing out. He comes out, and he's got smoke smudges on his face. And I looked at him and I said, "You're my hero." He just started laughing. I was like, oh. It was crazy though.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny. He looked and he just started laughing.
Yeah. That is a good story. Bob, you got one or not really?
I don't think so. Not really. The only thing that I try to do, even when it's a real heavy scene, a lot of times during things, I kind of become a jokester just to kind of lighten up the mood a little bit, and I think it kind of loosens things up, because a lot of times when you're doing a lot of heavy lifting in some of those scenes, you need a little bit of something to sort of break that. And so sometimes it becomes sort of the jokester catalyst to try to make that happen.
All right, Frank.
I mean, there's a few things, but I mean, this was kind of a funny thing. One of the first jobs I ever did, it was a pretty prominent actor who I was playing a cop, and I had to sort of take him down. And he told me he said he really wanted me to be physical with him. And as I took him down, it was a carpeted floor, and I had to he's like, "Hold me down. I'm going to fight you. So hold me down." I mean, like, because I'm going to try and get up. And I did it. And he was so happy that I fought him as much as I did. And as he got up, he had like carpet burns all over his face. Makeup wasn't too happy, but he was like ecstatic. He's like, "Yes, yes." And they're like, "Yeah, we're not going to do that again. We got it." That was pretty funny.
Well, that's what I love about doing these things. Never a dull moment. Guys, we're down to 1 minute and 44 seconds left. And the minute that time runs out, this is going to shut off. So I'm not going to do another question here. Anybody have anything they want to say, or you guys want to ask each other anything before we sign off here?
Oh, I was just going to say, actually, Robert, I noticed that your age range that you play on IMDb is 20 years old to 100. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's quite a feat, isn't it? Part of it, I never figured out how to edit that doggone thing. So I see it and say, I need to get back to that someday. So I doubt 20 will quite, I can quite do that.
You're just incredibly versatile. That's what it is.
Well, when I turn to certain
what does the Bible say? When you get to be old, there's something about becoming that young man, but I don't think that's what it's talking about. It might be more of a depends kind of thing.
All right. Well, we're down to less than a minute, guys. So unfortunately, we have to say goodbye at this point. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Scott. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you so much.
All right.
right.
Hey, guys, great to meet you. Bob, good to see you again. Frank, wonderful to meet you. Scott, thanks.
God bless you guys.
All
God
right.
bless you.
Bye.